maybe he'll save us. But Jonah was a prophet on the run, and he was a prayerless prophet at that time. He had stopped praying, much like a lot of people who call themselves Christians. They claim to believe in God, and yet they have no prayer life whatsoever. So that's kind of the recap of last week, okay? Before we get into chapter 2, which is Jonah's prayer, which is what we're going to be talking about, kind of want to read kind of a story, maybe a joke, maybe not, but I found it funny, so you're just going to have to deal with it, okay? So I'm going to read you a story of a small town church. The pastor was very upset because a bar opened up a few miles away. The pastor said, "We're not going to have a bar in this town. We're going to pray them out of business." And so they had prayer vigils, and for 24 hours at a time, the people would meet, and they'd pray, "God, run them out of business. Get rid of this bar." Sure enough, after quite some time of praying, the building was struck by lightning, and the bar burned to the ground. Well, the bar owner sued the church. The judge was listening to testimonies, and the bar owner said, "It's this pastor's fault. It's this church's fault. Those people are praying. Because of their prayers, God struck us with lightning." Then the pastor said, "Oh, no. Those were just harmless little prayers. I mean, we're just doing our little church meetings. It's not our fault that God did this." And the judge looked at them both, and said, "Well, this is very interesting. Here we have a bar owner that believes in the power of prayer and a pastor who does not." Wow. Figure out how that ties into today because it's great. All right, so Jonah the prophet, okay, right? Jonah, he's a prophet of God who's not in the mood to pray. The storm rages on. The sailors come in and say, "Yo, Jonah, what's up, man? Like, what's going on?" He says, "Well, I've got to admit it. It's my fault, my bad. I'm running from God," right? They throw him overboard. Everything will be cool, right? The sailors say, "We're not going to do that." They tried everything else possible. And at the end of the day, they realized we have no other choice. They were like, "Jonah, our bad, dude, but we're about to dump you, like right now," right? So they dump him overboard. And then the very last verse of Jonah 1 says, "And the Lord provided a great fish that swallowed Jonah, where he spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a fish." And that's where we're going to pick up our story in Jonah chapter 2. Jonah chapter 2 is the prayer of Jonah. Some people even call it the Psalm of Jonah. Now, as we kind of start to go through chapter 2, we're going to recognize that this is just a snapshot of what Jonah was praying. 3 days, 3 nights, the belly of a fish. And he was praying a lot of other prayers too, probably like, "Yo, God, like help, like get me out of here," right? Over and over again. So this isn't the exact prayer that he had. He was not like sitting in the belly of a fish with like a flashlight and a pen, like writing everything down, right? Because think about it. Like the whale's going like this, woo, like whales make noise, right? And Jonah's like in there with a pen. It's not the way it really works, right? "Whale, stop, you're swimming too fast." Like what we have here is we have the runaway prophet who neglected God, prayed, was delivered from the fish, looking back and recording in hindsight of the lesson that he had just learned. And he wrote kind of a beautiful portion of what he prayed after he learned what God was capable of inside the belly of the whale, the fish, tomato, people, okay? Jonah 2:1. From inside the fish, Jonah, what did he finally do? Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. In other words, God said, "I got your attention now, don't I, Jonah?" He said, Jonah said, in my distress, in my distress, I called on the Lord. What did the Lord do? The Lord, stop and think about that for a moment. I called on the Lord and he answered me. Can you really even grasp what that means to us? That we have the ability to call on God, the one who created everything, the one who is knowing and present and can do anything. That God, we can call on him and he will answer us. So Jonah called on him after he basically just said, yo, forget you, God, right? And God still, in his mercy, answered him. Think about that. Don't let the power of just that go by you. We can call on God and he'll answer. You know, it kind of amazes me how often people will say things like, oh man, things are just so bad. 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 Things are just bad. Things are so, man, I've tried everything, and things are so bad now all I can do is, can you imagine how insulting that is to God? All we can do now is pray? No, idiot. Hebrews 4:16 says we can go, no, it's almost not what I said. We can go boldly before the throne of grace. We have the right to step into the presence of God and find help in our time of need. We can call on God and he will answer us. So here's something that I also find kind of interesting is sometimes people won't even use the word pray. They'll say, you're going through a hard time? Let me think about you. You're in my thoughts. You good? Oh, man, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about you. Man, do me a favor. If I'm going through something, promise me you're not going to think about me. How about you pray for me? What is wrong with us? Thinking about me? No, pray for me. Now Jonah said, in my distress. Okay, so when I was studying all this, I really started digging into Hebrew words and their definitions. I'm going to give a disclaimer. Okay, I went to Licking Heights in the 90s, okay? We are lucky that we know how to speak English. So these words, okay, just go with me on them, okay? Angela, you know exactly what I'm talking about. See, woo! All right, go Hornets, right? All right, so now Jonah said, in my distress. Hebrew word for distress is the word Sarah, to Sarah. It's Tsarah. Somebody say it. There we go. Okay, so you got the word. All right. Now, in this word, remember, he's writing in the Hebrew language, and they are picture words, okay? He's writing a beautiful picture of what's going on, okay? So this word is a word that's used when a woman is giving birth, right? It means the distress of labor. It means the tension of someone is the pain of childbirth, right? And so you see, he's inside the belly of a fish, and he's using a pregnancy word. In my distress, in the agony, as if I'm being born, I called on God, and he answered me. And then look at the next part of the verse. He says, from the depths of the grave, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. The Hebrew word for grave is Sheol, which Sheol. That's what we're going with, and just Licking Heights 90s Sheol, okay? It can be translated as the realm of the dead. I like the way that the King James Version translates it, because this word can be and was translated as hell. From the depths of Sheol, from the depths of hell, I called on God, and he answered me. In other words, Jonah is saying, from this point in which I was farthest from God, from the place where I was miserable and had no way to contribute, from the place where I was helpless and desperate and afraid and hurting, I called on God. Maybe that speaks to somebody today because you're going through your own Sheol right now. Some of you would say, from the depths of my marriage in Sheol. I called on God, and he answered me. From the depths of shell in my heart, everything on the outside seems great. But inwardly, I'm depressed, I'm hurting, I'm anxious. I'm this, I'm that, I'm afraid. And something's just not right. Everything seems right, but in the inside, it's not. From the depths of my inward hell, I called on God, and he answered me. When I had no place to turn, I called on God, and he answered me from the deepest, darkest place, from the shell or hell. When I needed him most and I deserved it the least, he was there for me, right? Now, if you look at verse 1 and 2 together, as you would in the Hebrew language, what you're going to see is a picture that you could not imagine, okay? Sarah, the distress of childbirth, shell, hell, very literally. If you look at this as it's written, what it's saying is this. He's saying, I was as good as dead, but God, in his mercy, could cause me to Sarah to be born again. See what it's saying? I was good as dead. I was completely in my own power. Jonah was completely helpless. He couldn't contribute a thing, but he was not hopeless. Because God, even though this is for me, even I don't deserve this, his love and mercy, God was still on the throne. See, he could cause me to rise from the dead so I could be born again. Some of you, maybe you feel like you're in shell right now. And through the Tsara, you could be born again. Just pause for a moment and think about this. At any point in this story, God could have just been like, poof, fixed. Poof, done. God can do anything. Poof, God can have him delivered. And God could have, poof, calmed the storm. Everything would have been cool. When the sailors threw him overboard, God could have said, poof, hey, sailor, throw him a piece of board so he can float back. Instead of throwing everything over, he could have grabbed the board and said, thanks, dude. God could have caused him to float to shore. God could have sent, instead of a fish, like a turtle, right? Not like a little turtle you got in your backyard or in a cage in your room, right? But like a big turtle. Jonah could have climbed on his back, just kind of like laid there and like sunbathed all the way back up to the ocean, and the turtle could have dropped him off. God could have done that. But that's not what God did. God could have done it, but he didn't. But God still did a miracle through all that story. God was actively working even though Jonah was still in pain. Okay, so watch the different phases of God's work. Jonah, go. Jonah says no. Jonah gets on a ship. Phase 1, God sends a storm. It doesn't work. Phase 2, God sends the captain. You need to pray. Phase 3, the sailors have mercy on him and don't throw him overboard. Phase 4, when they do throw him overboard, God sends a fish. Phase 5, the fish gets a tummy ache and throws him up on shore, right? All through this miracle, you can see different places where God was working. See, a lot of times we will say, God, I want you to fill in the blank for yourself right now. God, I want you to do this. God, I need you to do this. God, I need... And then when God doesn't do this, we get all freaked out. Like, God, what's going on? Right? Don't neglect and don't overlook all the little things that God may be doing on the way to whatever your fill in the blank is. Watch as God works through it. See, God may have you on like a 10-phase healing process, because if you don't go through the first 9, you're not going to learn the things that God wants you to learn. See, you may be on phase 4 going, God, like, dude, where's phase 10 at? Don't forget to look back and go, phase 1, 2, 3. Oh, look what you did there. And look what you did there, God. Oh, and look there. Oh, I can see how you're working and how we're moving. Okay, so did I ever think that I'd be part of a church like this? No, no, right? What happened? Phase 1, God did something. Okay, amen, right? Phase 2, to Sarah happened for me, right? He had to do something in me painful. Phase 3, I had hit a roadblock, right? So I could see something I wouldn't see otherwise. Phase 433,572, like here we are, right? But God, through phases, leads us, teaches us, and redirects us. He guides us. He heals us, corrects us. Ouch, right? And he convicts us until he leads us to his ultimate will. See, don't forget to embrace the phase that you're in and celebrate the works of God as he leads you to his destiny for you. See, so Jonah and a fish. God's got his attention finally, right? That kind of summarizes the events. Verse 3, 4, 5, and 6, he says, "Oh God, you hurled me into the deep." Now, technically, it was the sailors who did it, but Jonah recognized the hand of God behind everything. You hurled me into the deep, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled around me. All your waves and breakers, they swept over me. He said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look again towards your temple. Verse 5, the engulfing waters threatened me. The deep surrounded me. Seaweed wrapped around my head. Like, it almost sounds like an episode of Man vs. Wild, doesn't it? Right? Anybody watch that show besides me? Yeah? Okay. Yes. All right. Jonah's in big trouble, right? If you look at everything that's going on, like seaweed wrapped around, like he's going down. Verse 6, to the roots of the mountains I sank down. The earth beneath me barred me in forever. And in other words, what Jonah was saying is, there's no physical hope for me. This is game over. It's do not pass go, do not collect $200. It's more than that if you're doing Monopoly Go, right? Like, no. He's like, I'm a dead man. And then he says, but you, God, but you brought my life up from the pit. See, if you read Jonah 1, you'll see over and over again the phrase down. He went down. He went down. He went down. He went to the bottom. And then all of a sudden, in Jonah 2, because of the interaction of God, things shift for Jonah. We see him starting to go back up. But you, O God, brought me up from the pit. Mind change, mind shift. Thoughts are changing. See, maybe you feel like your life is spiraling out of control. You're going downward. I want to remind you never to forget the but God moments. But God, my life was out of control, but God intervened. See, the doctor said there was no chance. You might as well just give up, prepare for the end. But God had the final say. See, don't forget the but God moments. Remember all the things that are possible with God. When Jonah was at a point where every physical thing said, you will never survive this. He said, you will never survive this. I was jarred in forever, but God. I called on him, and he heard my cry, and he delivered me up from the pit. He goes on to say this in verse 7. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, O Lord, and my prayer rose to your holy temple. Some of you maybe today are going, oh, yeah, I'm going to start remembering God. You say, well, I didn't forget him. I'm going to say, bull crap. Yes, you did. You know, a lot of times when things are going really good, what do we do with God? We make him the elf on the shelf. We say, oh, God, thanks, dude. Like, thanks, God, we're good. And you start thinking, well, I'm going to go put you right over here. I'm going to do my life right now. I'm going to go do, and I know you're over there, God, but, you know, I'm just going to do my thing right now. And then one day, you recognize you've basically been doing life without the power of God in it. But you remember God when your life was ebbing away. In the next verse, he shifts his tone. Remember, Jonah was a prophet. He declared prophetic truth. And that's what he does right now. And you can hear the seriousness of his tone. As if from the deepest point in his life, he is warning those readers of his time. If you think about it, he's warning us too. And he's saying basically, whatever you do, don't do what I did. Whatever you do, don't run from God. Whatever you do, don't neglect him. Don't disobey him. Verse 8, he says, those who cling to worthless idols, forget the grace that could be theirs. The word in the Hebrew language for grace, is the word H-E-S-E-D. Hesed. That's what we're going to go with and just work with. All right. It means loving kindness, or it means literally the pursuing love of God. See, those who cling to the stupid things of this world that don't matter, they're unable to receive the Hesed, the grace of God. So those who cling to worthless idols, what were Jonah's idols at this time? Well, one, he had the idol of prejudice. I don't like that group of people over there. Period. Right? So, in other words, second, he had the idol of self-worship. In other words, I heard God, but I don't care what he said. I'm going to go do what I want to do. Can I just tell you how many Sunday morning Christians, Sunday morning American Christians need to get rid of self-worship? Yeah, I know what God says, but I just don't care. I don't know what the idol of self-worship would be for you. Could be your image. Do I look good? Okay. Right? Do I look good? Self-image. Maybe that's your idol. Maybe it could be some relationship. I like him. I like her. I know that she's not a believer, but I really like her. I know I'm not supposed to sleep with her, but I really like her. Right? I want to do this. Maybe it's things. You just like things, more things. Money, things. They'll make me happy. Maybe it could just be the adrenaline and the thrill of success. Those who cling on to these idols cannot receive. They forfeit the grace. They forfeit the pursuing love of God. That's a bad trade, y'all. That's a bad trade. Maybe some of you are going to recognize that you're making a bad trade. You're holding on to things that are idols. You're missing out on the grace of God. Then I like what Jonah did. He didn't make excuses. Verse 9, the middle of the verse, he says, what I have vowed, I will make good. What did he vow? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows but Jonah. Possibly one of the things that he vowed was, God, if you tell me to speak, I will speak. If you tell me to go, God, I'll go. Whatever it was, what I vowed, I will make good. Hopefully for some of you today, there's something that you're going to make good with God. I don't know what it is, but you know that God has put something on your heart, and you need to make it good. You know what it is, but you haven't done it. I will make it good. See, God put something on my heart, something to do, and I kept letting fear control me. And I would talk myself out of it, and I would talk to my group, my homies, right? And they would tell me, no, go ahead and do it. But I would say, like, well, they don't know what they're talking about. And I would continuously talk myself out of things. And I'd put it off, and I'd put it off, and I'd put it off, and, oh, no, I'll just do that next week. You know what? Yeah. And then, you got people like, have you done that yet? No, I haven't. So where are we going for lunch today? And, just change that subject real fast, right? But see, finally, I did what God put on my heart. See, God's going to put something on your heart, and you've got to make it good. What I vowed, I'll make good. As we read the closing verse of chapter 2, remember this, okay? Jonah was in the fish, and there was nothing that he could do to contribute to his salvation. He couldn't go and sacrifice an innocent animal, and he couldn't make a sacrifice to God. He couldn't give money at the temple. He couldn't go and do good works. He couldn't help feed the poor. He couldn't do any kind of physical good work to contribute to him getting out of that fish. Remember, he couldn't do anything. Verse 9, in that context, the end of verse 9, he said something, hopefully you'll hear it in a way that you never have before, because it kind of hit me that way when I was studying this. He said, I couldn't contribute anything. Basically, he says, therefore, salvation comes from the Lord. That's where salvation comes from. It's from God, not you. No matter how many times we think we're God. Oh, I can save them. Idiot. Salvation comes from the Lord. It's from God. It's not from you. It's not from your works. It's not from doing good things or not doing bad things. In the New Testament, it says it this way, for it is by the grace of God that you are saved. See, it's never, ever by your own works. You know why? That way you can't brag about it. Salvation comes from the Lord. When you recognize that, it cost God his son, shed his blood, so you could be saved. That's what Jesus did. That's why it's called the good news. See, you can't bring anything to it. And when you recognize that, your only reasonable response, here's my life, Lord. Take it. See, salvation comes from the Lord. Jonah says that, and he knows it like he has never known it before. Verse 10 says, and then the Lord commanded the fish, and it spit Jonah onto dry land. Kind of like Jonah on dry land, right? It's kind of disgusting if you ask me, but it's powerful, and it drives the point home. Okay. Powerful point that drives home. Ha ha, Rocky, you are cracking yourself up. All right, and that is this. Whether you are on top of the world or whether you are in the depths of hell, depths of hell, tomato, when you call on the Lord, he will answer you. See, that's what we have to remember, is that mountaintops, valleys, hell that we've put ourselves in, Call on him, and he will answer you. Serious question, why does it take us so long to figure that out? Seriously. Why? Why does it take us until we are 22 to figure that out, right? Why? God is the same today, tomorrow, yesterday, last week when I was 21. Like, God is the same. Why can't we figure that out? Why is we, as adults, as mature Christians, figure that out? Seriously, think about that. Why can't we figure this out? Yeah. Sorry, Lee. I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Are you really going there? No, okay. Okay. Okay, Jesus, here we go. I want you to be honest with yourself. Because if we're being honest, we're never honest with ourselves. Where are you at with God? Are you good? Or do you have him sitting up here like an elf? Is he walking with you? Where's he at with you? Did you bring him today with you because it's Sunday and you know that it's 12:15 and you're going to just go put him in the trunk until next week as you go to lunch? I am so tired and frustrated, almost hateful, at the way we as Christians have taken God and just put him into an on-demand society type of God. This has nothing to do, this is just free stuff that just coming, so here we go. Rockyisms are about to happen, I can feel it. Okay, so sorry. The biggest problem that we have, and take we as however you want to, is that we can't be real with where we are with God. Why can we not just be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not good. Instead of coming in here all, I'm good, I'm great, this is wonderful, I love Jesus, you love Jesus. Okay, let's really get into this song a little bit. Okay, yes, oh yes, I love you, Jesus. Oh, music is done? Okay, Jesus, just shut me off right now. It's time to go home. Okay, thanks, Jesus. It's almost lunchtime. Where are we going to lunch at today? Oh, and you're picking lunch today, right? Okay, great. So this is where we're going to go. And I'm just so excited to get out of here. Can everyone please get out of the building? Because I just need lunch right now. Like, I'm really hungry. This coffee, I shouldn't have done that quad shot today because this is what happens, and here we go. Like, thank you, Jesus. Now I can get out of here. And I'm just so happy to leave and just be gone. But my bad. I'm supposed to live like Jesus. I'm supposed to love like him. And I wasn't loving anyone that was taking a conversation on too long so I could get out of here and go to lunch. Jesus, where are you at? Oh, dang. I didn't even bring you with me today. I was mad because my clothes weren't dry yet. I had to pick out a whole new outfit. I may have said some words I shouldn't have said. Oh, Jesus, I didn't even bring you last week. Jesus, where are you at? Why is my life not going so good? It was going good last week. Oh, that's because I was in my word last week. I was spending time with you? Oh. Jesus? I think I know where I left you. I left you back over there when my life was just going so great that I didn't need to think about you, that I didn't want you. Okay, nope. I want you to be honest. This is how we even went down that little tangent, and I started to leave and was going to go to lunch right now. But be honest with yourself. Be honest with what God's been telling you to do, and you've been freaking ignoring him like he's one of your kids or your boss or whatever. Fill in the blank. I want you to just to not go running out to smoke or drink or talk to somebody or go to the bathroom. Y'all are adults. You can wait 5 more minutes. I want you to just, because I just went back and locked the door, so that's what I was doing. You can't get out anyway, suckers! No. All right? You think I'm kidding. No, maybe. I would never lock the doors. Anybody from the fire department in here? I would never lock these doors. Ever. Right? The next couple of minutes, I just want you to take some time and just spend some time with God. Don't talk to the people around you. Spend some time with him. Stop and listen. Amazing thing to do. Stop and listen. You might be thinking, well, God's not telling me anything. Well, yeah, because you won't stop and listen. His voice is there. Maybe you haven't been giving him your attention. Man, just take the next, as the band comes up to do whatever the song is that they're going to do, just stop and take time and spend it with him. Why can't you do that today? Because you can't do it any other day of the week, but at least you can be a Sunday morning Christian and do it today. Take this time and say to God, God, I'm finally ready to listen to you. I'm finally here, God. It's me and you, bro. Let's go. Make him your ride or die homie. Maybe you feel like you've been stuck on phase 4, and God's got you on a 553 plan of what he's doing with you. Just take the next few moments and thank him for what he's done for you in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Because this is something that I really have started doing here lately, because in my life, my personal life, Rocky World, I've seen what God did to me in phase 1. I've seen what God did for me in phase 4, phase 5. I see, y'all, man, when you stop and think what he did for you in that phase of your life, he was right there. You know, I think back to when, I decided that I just didn't feel good, and finally decided I should go to the doctor, and the whole appendix thing. And what God did for me during that phase of life, but it's so I am still walking here today. But see, at the time, all I kept saying, and I kept saying it to Lee, because Lee spent a lot of time with me up there. I kept saying, dude, I don't want a bag. I don't care. I don't want a bag. I have too much to do. And Lee said, well, maybe you're just being too prideful. And then I had the nurse kick him out because that was just too much. I'm like, no. And the first thing that I did after coming out of surgery and being told, I'll never forget it, Lee, I was a little like, ooh, loopy, but Lee goes, bro, no bag. And I'm just like, no bag, thank you, Jesus. But what's crazy is, and what I'm talking about is I've said one of those stupid bags that collects all your crap, right? And so that's what I'm talking about. But all I could think of was, man, he's so good, so faithful. And I was at the point during that time to where, like, I'd put God, like, in the little sidecar of the motorcycle. He was on the shelf during that time of my life. Woo. So thankful for what he did. And here we are, phase, whatever it is. And you know what? I'm okay with that phase right now because I know that God is in that phase with me. And when I look back tomorrow, I'll be able to see what he did during this phase and then the next phase and the following phase because God is always faithful. So just spend the next couple moments with him. Thank him for the phases that you're in. Thank him for... Watch out. Thank him for the phases that you're still to go through. Thank him for just, God, thanks, man. How many times can you spend all the time that you want talking to somebody else, but you can't spend it with talking to God? Perfect opportunity. I've set you up for the next hour and a half to just spend time with God. Nobody ran. All right. Spend some time with him. What does that look like for you? I don't know. It might mean you're sitting up here in the corner or you're hiding back there behind the donut welcome stand table thing, right? Find your spot and find God with you right there.